So, welcome back to Diversity Matters, where every voice is heard and every story matters. I'm Teresa Palacio Smith, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America and Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And today we have an exciting episode lined up for you as we continue our mission of exploring diversity and inclusion through powerful stories and voices. And joining me today is Lemuel Levels, the new, I would say new, although you've been there in the position a couple of months, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Lemuel is a trailblazer in fostering a culture of inclusivity and equity, bringing a wealth of experience and passion to his role. His leadership is instrumental in driving Berkshire Hathaway Energy's, who's our parent company's, commitment to creating a diverse and inclusive workplace where every employee feels valued and empowered. Lemuel's impressive background includes his tenure as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at TIAA, a Fortune 100 financial services company, where his initiatives significantly elevated the company's diversity standing. And today we're going to dive into his vision for a more inclusive future and learn how his efforts are not only shaping the culture at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, but also setting a standard for the entire industry. So without further ado, let's talk and get into a conversation with Lemuel Levels and continue to explore why diversity matters. So, Lemuel, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I always love to learn about individuals' backgrounds. Like,
Mhm.
share what what number one inspired you to pursue a diversity, equity, and inclusion career, because that's unique in itself. And
Mhm.
also a little bit about the background that you came from, where it was kind of in the financial sector and how that transitions over to Berkshire Hathaway Energy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Teresa. The connection that you and I are establishing I look forward to it. It's going to be amazing. I look forward to the partnership. We're in this together, and with the times that we are in, it's important. It's imperative to have the right individuals around you. And so, thank you for your leadership in this space. Let me begin with I'm a storyteller. And so let me unbutton my jacket because this is going to be fun. So my grandfather, who is the greatest man, no offense to my father. My father is great, but my grandfather is the absolute greatest man that I have ever had the privilege of meeting. Even if I had not met him, his greatness would have left footprints for us to follow. My grandfather worked in a different era, a different time. But my grandfather would get up every day and he would put on his tie and his suit and his vest and he would have his pocket watch. And my grandfather would pack his pockets just filled with all goodies. Now we have, the bags that the men are carrying and to help with that and but my grandfather went to work every day in that suit and in that tie. Now, understand, my grandfather went to work at a very different time than in which I entered the workforce as I began my career. And so my grandfather, as he went to work, he worked at a bank, and when he went to work, dressed like he did, my grandfather didn't go through the front door. My grandfather went through the back door. He went through the door for Negroes only. My grandfather wasn't the chairman of the bank. He wasn't the president, the vice president. My grandfather wasn't a banker. My grandfather was the janitor. He had all the keys, and I wish I had a set of keys, but he had all the keys, and I can hear as I close my eyes, I can hear the sound of those keys. My grandfather, although he was the custodian at the bank, he was the most respected man in that particular county. He was the first at that time. What how it was labeled. So excuse the term in advance, but he was labeled as the first Negro to settle in that county with his family. In fact, today in that museum, he's enshrined in that museum because of the impact that he had. My grandfather helped broker deals for that bank. My grandfather, the president, the mayor, the councilman all respected him, and they treated him as a man. Fast forward, my grandfather understood investment and he understood education, and he understood paying it forward. My grandfather would, he would purchase Series EE and Series I bonds when I was born. And so upon graduation, that was my gift from my grandfather through my mother. And he had paved the way for me to enter into college and to pay for my education. I began my career in banking, unlike my grandfather. I walked into the bank. I went to the through the front door. I went to the left, and there was my office with a nice window view, and it had my name as assistant vice president. I am who you see today because of my grandfather. I walked into banking in the front because my grandfather ensured that the door was closed at the back, that all of the beautiful opportunity coming through the front, my grandfather ensured that it was going to be able to stay and create great impact. I walked through the front of each bank that I have walked through over the past 18 years because of the courage, because of the sacrifice, because of the fortitude and energy of my grandfather. And so you talk about my background. I can't speak of my background and where I am today, Teresa, if it wasn't for my grandfather. And so my background has been wonderful. I've had a great experience in working for three of the four largest, at the time, largest financial institutions in the world. I have held the hands of people in Florida during the housing crisis who were losing their homes. I have had the privilege of working in an all Spanish speaking market early in my career, and so being able to work with National Hispanic Chamber, with LULAC, with Uno Dos, working with small businesses, working with families who are coming over for a better life and helping them build wealth and building relationships in banking. I've had the privilege of standing with LGBTQ plus associates who were being harassed and work to bring in our recruiters to specifically hire that particular, from that particular demographic. And so working at Citigroup, working at Bank of America, working at Thriving Financial to really build wealth among several different underrepresented communities. Fast forward to TIAA, an absolute wonderful organization, tremendous leadership, and truly working on what it means to retire inequality, not just in finance, but in representation, in career. And so now you fast forward here at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, I have the privilege and the honor to lead the work across Berkshire Hathaway Energy in diversity, equity, and inclusion. What keeps me centered is my grandfather and understanding that you can build relationships with anyone. And so that is my heart. That is my mindset. It was my mindset in banking. And as I have shifted to now 6 months, close to 6 months into this role in utilities and energy, that is my same approach is how can we make the lives of people better? And what can we do to create a lasting impact? So hopefully, Teresa, that gives you some insight of my
Oh my
background.
God, I'm telling you, I'm just teary-eyed. Just the way you talk about him and the opportunities that many of our ancestors, right, are the people that really touched the lives, but actually fought that fight for us so that we could walk through the doors and be
Mm.
equal to others. I can just tell you what a beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful homage to him. I'm just like, to talk about someone who impacted not just your
Mm,
lives, but also others because of the work that you do now
mm,
through that vision that he had and the fact that he was in that museum and that he
mm,
now holds a
mm,
place in the history, not just of your history, but the history
mm.
of that town and of the people that, of course, he was able to influence as well. Amazing. Thank you for
Wow.
sharing that. I really do appreciate it. And I know that your work with TIA was extremely, and we talked about it, that you worked in a Latino
Mm,
market, that all these
mm.
things really have impacted what you're going to be doing at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. But what would you consider that was your most proud and impactful moment with TIAA?
Sure. So let me tell you how I became centrally focused in this space. My background has, I've led markets, I've led teams, financial stretch assignments to really build up operations and risk. And so to this day, I wear a heavy crown of operations and risk. And I understand that part of the work. Financial services is who I am, financial empowerment, financial success for our people. But I was actually at TIAA, I was in a mentorship session, and the chief diversity officer, they were speaking, and the chief people officer were speaking in that meeting, and they asked a question. I answered it, and I received a message. This is, and I want everyone listening, pay attention to the messages and the crumbs dropped along the way. And so, as I was answering in this mentorship session that was hosted by their business resource groups, the chief diversity officer, stated, how impressive my response was. The chief people officer reached out and said, "Hey, I want to talk with you." Within days, I had one-on-one meetings with the chief diversity officer and the chief people officer. Fast forward, a role came open on the team, and I was the lucky recipient to serve in that work. And so for the past 5 years of that transition, I have been dedicated and focused on that work. And it all began with one answer in a mentorship session where the chief people officer and the chief diversity officer were there. And so pay attention to the crumbs, pay attention to the nuggets, um, take advantage of opportunities. A couple of things that I'm proud of specifically at TIAA is, number one, we advanced what's called a male allyship program. And so we understand that at the time when we launched our Retire Inequality campaign, at the time it was, women were making 82 cents to the dollar. And I believe it's since went up to 83, 84 cents last study. And so the Male Ally program centered male leaders to raise their hand, to step up, to step out of the shadows into the light, and to say, we understand the disparity. We understand the lack of representation. We understand the intellectual capital that you possess, and we want to be allies. And so there were a few things that we did. Number one, we began just having conversations with male allies, with male leaders, senior male leaders, and women professionals across the organization. And we began to have, create, a podcast type of conversation where we could convey, just talk about some of our vulnerabilities in this space, and how do we show up, and how do we sponsor, and how do we connect, and how do we lean in and understand. We also understood that during the COVID era, we had the great resignation where many people, especially women, were leaving the profession. Think about intellectual capital walking out the door of your company because you didn't have the right system, or you didn't have the right operations, or you couldn't embrace a flexible work lifestyle. And so we began having these discussions. We set up an actual training for male allies that was sponsored by the Women's Business Resource Group. We also had a nomination period to where we had women professionals who were able to write about a particular male ally in the company that they wanted to highlight. And so we went through that process and had a session to where we highlighted that connection of allyship. And so the professional had the chance to highlight the ally, and they both had a chance to talk. And by the end of the call, there were nothing but tears because of the connections that were made. So that was one special moment of just understanding how men can be the difference, and how we need to pave the way for colleagues, for nieces, for daughters, and so that was a great dynamic. The second piece is being a part of the team and working on pay equity. When we think about the pay equity and the pay gap in the UK. What does that look like? So being able to, again, bring resources, leaders together specifically to understand what the gap is, what TIAA did at the time to ensure a 99% rate of equity, that says a lot. One of the last things I'll share is with our business resource groups. So Teresa, when I first took over the business, being the head of the business resource groups, we were we had a few thousand, members. We were less than, we're right at maybe 32% of the company in representation. And so with the restructuring and with how we elevated and brought in different leaders, we had parity, with amongst our leadership, 56-48, 56 million, 48% women. We onboarded new leaders. We were able to pivot and bring in new imagery and to rebrand the ERGs. And so with that process and with the help and the full support of our CEO, who really laid the charge and the groundwork, we were able to see an uptick. So we went from 3,000 to 6,700. We went
Wow.
from around 30% to over to 44, 45% of total employees that were part of an ERG. We went from 9 US based business resource groups. I said ERG. That's what we have at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. But at TIAA, we had 9 business resource groups domestically, and then we were able to stand up additional business resource groups in India and in London. And so I'm proud of the work, not because of what I did. I'm proud of the work because I surrounded myself with great people. There was great leadership, and our executive team, our CEO, had strict accountability and buy-in to support the work of inclusion, to support the work of these groups, to support the work of allyship and equity across the company. And so, my biggest lesson learned is be patient. It's an easy one, but be patient in the midst of adversity. Because in this space, as well as Teresa, it sounds good, it looks good, but it's a challenge. And so bringing in the right people, having the right ear to listen to those you agree with, don't agree with, that really spiraled the success that I had in my tenure at TIAA.
Gosh, I love all that. I love that you, number one, were obviously an ERG, right? Or a business resource group, which is what we also
Mm-hmm,
have at
mm-hmm,
Berkshire Hathaway Home
mm-hmm,
Services, brought you to the light. It was an event that they held
mm-hmm,
that actually created an opportunity for you, which I think is amazing. So you kind of took that and said, okay, how can we really create opportunities for others? The
mm-hmm,
pay equity, amazing. Still, for that number you shared is for
mm-hmm,
Caucasian, right? Women. It does, even if you look
mm-hmm,
at, African
mm-hmm,
American, Black women, and Latinos, that
mm-hmm,
disparity
absolutely.
is even
Mm-hmm,
worse, right?
mm-hmm,
So looking at how can we change that and taking on that as a project, I think is unbelievable. And I
mm-hmm,
think takes a lot of courage. But the thing that you mentioned the most, which I think is really important in all of our roles, no matter where we are, is that you had the buy-in from the CEO,
mm-hmm,
because without that, you cannot impact change, because the CEO has to not only be at the very
mm-hmm,
forefront of providing you that, opportunity and resources, but then also saying to others, this is
mm-hmm,
important to us, other leaders within the company, because that's the key, is getting other stakeholders to buy into
mm-hmm,
everything you're doing. So thank you. I love that. And I love that you have all that experience that you're bringing to Berkshire Hathaway. So I know we talk about how, the one thing that I've seen with BHE that they
mm-hmm,
do so well
mm-hmm,
is they do really put metrics in place.
mm-hmm.
And how will you, and that again, how is you going to be able to put the metrics in order to be able to show and track progress?
Mm-hmm. No, that's Teresa, that's a great question. And let me begin by saying that, me joining Berkshire Hathaway Energy has been a great experience. I have the opportunity to work with and support just some incredible people outside of their corporate roles, just great people with great stories, with great experience and some insights. And so, from our CEO, who I've had conversations with, and certainly a profound respect in just how he processes and understands this work that I lead. Having the runway with our general counsel, who is a great partner in this space, and has really given the opportunity for us to go to 2.0. There's a foundation that's set at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, as well as and so those that came before me have certainly paid the dues, and I'm glad they paid they paid those dues. But certainly, I am I'm grateful for the groundwork. I'm grateful for those that came before me, because it allows me to really think about what is 2.0 to diversity, equity, and inclusion across Berkshire Hathaway Energy. What does it look like from a tracking, from a metric standpoint? So yes, I do believe that we have the opportunity at BHE to really to truly have a strong self ID campaign. And why do I begin there? It sounds basic, but I'm going to begin there because it's not just about how we hire and who we serve, but it's also when you are tracking that information and utilizing it effectively with your leadership teams, with your analytics partners, with your employee experience. You are centrally stating that we want to know how to create a better experience for you. That is at the heart of it. That's so it could be signage, it could be visibility on the website, it could be social media output, it can be how we show up in the office, it could be from uniforms perspective. Whatever that case may be, we want people to self ID so that we can better serve you. If we understand your if we're building a restaurant, and we're building this great menu, we want people to feel that if there's something on the menu that you need to customize so that it fits you, that's what the self ID process is. So if we can strengthen that, if we can continue to advance that number, and to talk about the story behind it. With any metric, there has to be a story. So where does that story connect to? So when we think about our data, of let's say our hiring practices, our candidate cycle, our retention. Let me begin with mobility. I believe it's important for us to track mobility, absolutely. But let's also track mobility for those that are part of employee resource groups. And so if you're a faithful member of employee resource groups, or you served as a leader, or you served as in any capacity advising those groups, what is your mobility compared to internal mobility for those that aren't a part of those groups? There could be a balance. There may not be. At TIAA, if you were part of those business resource groups, Teresa, we saw a higher internal mobility than if you were not. So that is one aspect. I do also believe that in terms of where data, in terms of hiring, what type of roles and for whom. Are we reaching out to particular geographic areas, to particular demographics? What data of contact do we have with creating a diverse profile, a diverse slate of candidates? What data do we have from a pull through rate? So this particular percentage, you got the interview. This particular percentage, we saw an uptick in getting the job. So how can we tell the story of connectivity, of purpose and power behind workforce analytics? And so analytics, and if you can't tell your story if you aren't tracking it. And so my advice to anyone in this space is, how well is your tracking system? How well is your HRIS system? How well do you have? I have a close relationship with my workforce analytics teammate, and understanding that where we were at the end of Q3, Q4 of last year, we are approaching dashboard development at a completely different perspective, because let's now tell the story behind it. And so I would say that we are looking at the data that makes sense, the data that tells the story to our presidents, to our CEO, and also the data to where our people, our employees, can feel good about. And so we're still making some inroads there, but certainly how you collect data, how you tell the story is extremely important to the success of this work.
Well, I love the self-ID because I think a lot of individuals don't understand and or misjudge why we need the
Mm-hmm.
information. Because, a lot of times we will, request it, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's voluntary, but there's a lot of fear. Sometimes people don't want to be identified as certain group because they feel they may be considered, there may be biases formed
Mm-hmm.
against them. Energy business in general is very
Mm-hmm.
male driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of that, in your mind, that's what you're thinking. But the truth is, I love what you said. You cannot measure or you cannot improve what you cannot measure. If you don't know your numbers and you don't really know how can I cater to you better,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the key to any operation's success because it's employees that we
Mm-hmm.
want to satisfy
Yeah,
and we
right.
want to know who you are and how can we make your life better with the resources, with the benefits that
Mm-hmm.
we offer, with
Mm-hmm.
everything that's available so that we can actually feel that you can feel connected to this
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah,
mhm,
real quick, you said something about benefits, and that triggered a thought. Even benefit usage by demographic. When you look at your benefits, who's using those particular benefits. And if you notice a variance or you notice a gap, lean in and ask the question, how come we're seeing this gap with this particular age demographic, with this particular background, or maybe it's even, from a geographic perspective. So when you are developing benefits and offering, these solutions to your employees, think about it from that perspective, because if it's a benefit that you're offering, you want your employees to be able to use
to
it
use it.
with equity, and to not have the barriers that let's say just health, that health deserts, medical gaps can create in particular communities. So benefits is something that oftentimes we may overlook. It's extremely important.
Extremely. That's exactly, what I think that's how it ties in. If we're to understand what's being used, what all those things play
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
who you are and how we can better help serve
Mm-hmm.
you. Because we are in the service business
We are.
as chief people officers and chief diversity officers. So I know we talked about the ERGs, the business resource groups. My mentalities is more business resource groups
Mm-hmm.
and employee resource groups combined because
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be, number one, a financial opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and also advancement, because you brought it up already.
Mm-hmm.
There is no doubt to me that you start to see those individuals
Mm-hmm.
within the business resource groups that really are like talented that you may have
Mm-hmm.
not known before,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
that you might have said, "Oh, wow, I had no idea that they were this eloquent in getting in front of a group, where they had these phenomenal operational creative side to them,"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because sometimes our roles don't allow it. In fact, I was identified through that
Mm-hmm.
myself. And so
Wow.
I
Wow.
believe truly, and it was through NARA, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, where
Mm-hmm.
it was a organization where I became the leader of. Had I not been identified that way, I would have never gotten this role
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in now. So I do believe that those opportunities elevate you. So what is your thought process with the overall goals with the D&I in that ERG space?
Can I do a heart? Is there a way that I can do the heart? I don't know if it's going to let me do
Yes.
it usually comes up. So, no, you said it. You said it. I don't need to say anything. I can take my packed lunch and go home. You said it well. So, the employee resource groups, business resource groups, for me, should be a conduit of talent. It should be a talent pipeline. My hope and my desire is, and we're going through an evolution of our employee resource groups today. So we've done a good job in the foundation, and I, certainly we've had some great leaders in that space. Now it's time to take the employee resource groups and to take our business and let's come together. Let's come together in talent. What's the talent pipeline? I want leaders. I want our presidents, our vice presidents, our hiring leaders to
Mhm.
look at the talent within our employee resource groups and say, hey, I want that person. That person right there, they can come lead my team. You know why? Because they've had exposure, they've had access, they've had opportunities, they've had some leadership development. And so part of the employee resource group commitment under my leadership is, one, I want to develop you as an employee. And so there's going to be some professional development. It's going to be that business connectivity. It's going to be that stronger alignment of business and inclusion without singling out either one. How can we work together? And so I want to help hiring managers produce better results in their teams. And so we can do that through employee resource groups. We can do that through tabletop sessions, through human connection events. Our employee resource group should be a business conduit. I work for an energy company that specializes in energy and utilities and a number of other, particular, levels of interest. And so in order for us to create that energy through our employee resource groups, it has to connect to the business. It has to connect to that main source. And so we've got to advance careers. We've got to advance mindset. We've got to advance, hearts. We've got to increase talent. We've got to build that pipeline, and we've also got to build influence. And so, at the heart of any company, for me, my opinion, employee resource groups carry the message forward. They can be broad, it can be deep, it can continue to build momentum. And so for us at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, employee resource groups will not tell the complete story of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it will tell a story of how we are producing better people to get better results.
I think that's beautiful. And you know what? It can grow the business
It can.
because once the two connect and
Mm-hmm.
intersect, there's an understanding that through
Mm-hmm.
that vibrancy, through the
Mm-hmm.
involvement of all your business
Mm-hmm.
resource groups, the employees, for example, that you increase your exposure to
Mm-hmm.
look at what we have here.
Mm-hmm.
That just brings more talent that
Absolutely.
comes from outside, but more
Mm-hmm.
importantly from inside, which is a
Absolutely.
lot of times the complaints a lot of people have. Well, I don't have opportunity to grow here because no, that brings
Mm-hmm.
that to a whole new standard.
Yeah.
So how do you get your stakeholders and your leaders in the organization? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, they're established in
Mm-hmm.
their ways. How do you help them and influence them so that the organization can prioritize and support these initiatives?
I would say this, and I want to backtrack, and I'll be the one to deal with the elephant in the room. So Teresa, the elephant in the room, two elephants in the room. One, this is election season, but also number two, we are seeing a polarization of the term DEI,
Yes, we are.
which if we say it out loud, diversity, equity, inclusion. And so that is a challenge itself. I'm not saying that within Berkshire Hathaway Energy, but just the
It
work
is
that
in the
that
industry, and no
yeah,
matter where you are in the country, it
it
is.
it 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 is a fact that it creates a challenge. And so I have come in from day one, and I have centered my approach to this work. It probably differs, from some of my contemporaries in this space, and I'm okay with. I think we all bring a our own perspective and understanding where we want to take our respective work. I came into it not focusing on the diversity and inclusion. I came into this role focused on human connection. So to go back to your question on how to engage stakeholders, how to bring in more people, is that word connection. I'm a connector. I believe that based on my experience in finance, banking, operations, risk, financial markets, being able to consult various industries, working with business leaders, working with other business employees, leading teams, being able to hire across demographic lines globally. that gives me an edge, because not only I'm not doing this out of passion, I'm doing this out of a business purpose. A business purpose is we want to increase profits. A business purpose is we want to increase our connectivity for our customers. The business purpose is we want to ensure that our employees have a good experience. So I take that and bring it together in human connection. So you talk about stakeholders. So let me re-engage. I've said this across many meetings. I've got to build, I've got to rebuild, and I've got to repair relationships. That is ongoing. Every week I meet with a particular group of leaders. What am I doing there? I'm rebuilding, I'm repairing, and I'm creating. And so to build stakeholders, it's just a matter of showing some humanity about this work. It's not so much me going in to the meeting, Teresa, saying we need to do it this way. It's
Mhm.
me coming into the meeting and saying, hey, talk to me. What do you need? How can I help you? What specifically do you need from me? I just hosted a roundtable in Portland. Phenomenal employees. And my question to them was, at the end of that roundtable discussion, what do you need from me? I do not want to be a chief officer in this space and only leading with what I believe or what I know. I want to lead with bringing more stakeholders in, more leadership in, to say, how can we tackle these problems together? And it's not all about just diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's about human connection. Now, that human connection brings us to the table of how to connect with Black employees, of how to connect with LGBTQ plus employees, of how to connect with Asian employees. That's a human connection. I'm not asking you to join the table to connect on DEI. I am asking you to connect at the table with people with great talents and stories and potential. And if we can meet there, then I believe that we can do some great things together.
Oh, you are and I are so aligned because I truly believe that's how you really make a
Mm-hmm.
difference. And that human connection. And it's
Mm-hmm.
360. I always talk
It
about
is.
it's 360. Everyone is a human and we
Mm-hmm.
want opportunities. And what is it that you need from
Mm-hmm.
us to make a difference and an impact in the business
Mm-hmm.
that will also help and bring respect and
Mm-hmm.
value from the employee side? I love that. So tell me, Lemuel, as far as what advice would you give someone who really wants to make a difference in their organization and in their communities that can help, in that space if they decide, I want to do this as
Mm-hmm.
well?
Wow. That's a tough question, because depending on the day, Lemuel, my the response from me may be different. So let me give you two responses. Number one, I would say, I wouldn't so much say anything initially. I would want to understand their why. My why is seeing and bringing the experience of my grandfather with me each and every day. So my confidence and my posture in this work is centered around the backdrop of my story. And so I want to know, people that want to get involved in this space, what is your why behind it? Do not allow passion to move you in this space. Why do you want to do it? Who do you want to impact? Why are you wanting to impact that particular group or that community? What have you done, or what will you do outside of a role to accomplish your why? That's one conversation in itself. Is I need to get in your mind to understand, why are you doing this? I've said this many times across Berkshire so far. It is not about ego. It is not. Get out of your head with this work and get into your heart. Get into understanding that communities that we live and drive by on a daily basis, they need people with a plan to make their lives better, and that includes our employees. And so that's the first part. The easier advice I would say is, do you have a mentor that you can follow and to help navigate through some of the headwinds that you would face in pursuing this type of role. This work is heavy. This work is not easy. This work can be lonely. And so I would want to give them the true insight of this work. When you are working not just to advance community efforts, but when you are working to change the trajectory of a company away from the norm, and you come in raising your hand to think to, and maybe this is some ego, but to think like, hey, I can change it and I can do it. Teresa, that is tough. And so that stakeholder piece. So who do you have in your corner as a mentor, as a guide? What are you reading? What are you watching to truly help you transition into this space? I wouldn't have been successful in making a complete pivot had it not been for leading a Spanish speaking market, had it not been for leading employee resource groups, had it not been a mentor and a sponsor, had it not been a hiring leader in diverse markets, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But because I had that experience and I'm bringing some weight with me, I can lean in heavy with someone that wants to transition or perhaps they want to elevate to the next level. Don't elevate out of passion. Find your why, get to your purpose, and have the right people around you.
Oh, what great advice. Number one, there's a beautiful saying, when you know the why, the how becomes easy.
Easy, easy.
It's just like, know that why, be able to communicate it. Everything else will fall into
Wow,
place.
wow,
That's
wow.
great, great advice. I love it. So everyone wants to know, at Berkshire Hathaway companies across the country, what upcoming events are planned for the organization that we
Wow.
should be aware of?
So we have. It's funny that you mentioned because just right before our time together, we were thinking through, a big event that's upcoming this year, and so Berkshire Hathaway Energy, proud to present our in October of this year, October 10th through the 12th in Las Vegas. We will be hosting our professional development summit called the Art of Inclusion. And so it's sponsored by the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion team formerly through our employee resource groups. And certainly they are still central focus and a part of what we call PDS internally. But it truly is an opportunity for us to come together across our businesses, across our organizations, across our teams globally in Berkshire Hathaway Energy to come together to lean in on topics relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. With the theme this year, Teresa, the art of inclusion, it truly talks about that inclusion between the work and the business. Understanding some of the topics will be about the art of the future. What does the future look like? What does this forward journey look like? One of the other topics is the art of hope. Understanding the times that we live in, Teresa, we need some hope. We all have had been at our wits end and had those moments where we're like, wow, if I just had something or someone that would stop by my desk or just send me a message in Teams just to give me some hope. We'll have sessions pertaining to the art of hiring right. How can we equip our leaders to hire right? Not, and that's not stating that they're hiring wrong. Hiring right means hiring the right individual with the right with a set of diverse backgrounds that perhaps we haven't considered before. One of the sessions will be the art of storytelling, how to tell our story. My story about my grandfather is going to different, Teresa, than your story, and how you and your upbringing with your family and how you eventually got into this space. It's going to differ from how our colleagues share their story. So, what is storytelling? How impactful is storytelling? And why is it important for us to tell the story about who we are? Because that matters. Diversity matters, right? And so we're going to have, some keynote speakers. We're going to be bringing together many different leaders across our companies. We're going to have some invited invited guests with other Berkshire companies that I'm excited about. And then we're also going to be able to do some outreach and some community service. And if you hang around, long enough after the summit, we are going to be showing up for Las Vegas Pride and marching in the parade in a very dynamic way. And then we'll also have the festival the following day. So that is one big event that is coming up across Berkshire. We hope to deploy, at the end of this year, an end of year inclusion event where we recap the year with a guest speaker, and that's open up to all employees. And so we're planning some exciting things in the space that I lead, but it's all about bringing our people together, our companies together, so that we can move forward.
So you heard it here, Lemuel. Thank you so much. So Professional Development Summit,
Hmm.
October 10th through the 12th in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Where's what location will it be?
The Fountain Blue Las Vegas Resort.
The Fountain Blue Las
Mhm.
Vegas Resort. Great time, great year to be able to also then follow up with Pride in Las Vegas, which is a beautiful time to be
Mhm.
there. So, wow, I love that. I'm so glad to hear that's coming up. I will definitely mark my calendar to be there as well.
Absolutely.
And
Special guest.
ah,
Red carpet,
I
whatever you
love it.
need, Teresa. Whatever you need, just let me know. I know someone that's kind of leading, that's putting this on. So just let me know, and I'll
I
talk to
will, absolutely. Thank you so
her.
much. I love it. And this has been so wonderful getting to know you a little better. Your background is so beautiful. Your grandfather's story is something that really touched my heart. And I know that it will have touched everyone that watches this
Absolutely.
episode. Now, I'm going to do fun question because obviously we both love soul food. I'm
Oh,
a
we do. We
Latina,
do. Oh
we
my
our
gosh.
soul food that
Yes.
brings
Yes.
big back fond memories of our childhood or a special place in our heart. So what's your soul food and what's the
Whew.
story behind
So
it?
that's a so now so it's lunchtime somewhere. So there's a few of them. So let me begin just with my favorite soul food meal, right? So I grew up. We called it. We didn't call it stuffing. It was cornbread dressing.
Oh yeah.
Cornbread dressing with as my grandmother would say, do you want some giblet gravy with that? So we had the cornbread dressing. We had the giblet gravy. We had the fried fish. We had the candied yams. And one of my favorites was the broccoli rice cheese casserole. So I could have that anytime. I am very health conscious. I watch what I eat now, so I can't have that every day. But if that's made, I'm eating it. And most importantly, cornbread dressing is just my absolute favorite.
Was that in
Uh,
Texas that you grew up?
so that was between California, Texas, yes.
Gotcha.
And so um, my grandmother, I can envision the house now. You could come up on the house and you would hear, people, but you would smell her baking what's called fried pies. And
Oh,
so Teresa, she would, I don't know how many and she had a kitchen that was made, that was 150 square feet in that house.
mhm.
And she would make, I'm sure, hundreds of fried pies because she would make them and then freeze them. And so she would have apricot, she would have peach, she would
Oh,
have apple, and just and they were all
hand love with
crafted.
love. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And my grandmother was a short lady, but powerful. And she had a process, she had a system, having that, just understanding that, and we missed it as an opportunity. We should have figured out the recipe, and they should have been in stores because they were that good. You couldn't eat but one. You would have to have four or five at a time. The fried pies were a big one. And then my mother growing up, my dad loves cakes. And so my mother every week would bake a cake, whether it's sock it to me, whether it's a buttermilk pound cake, whether it's a pineapple upside down cake, whether it was a German chocolate, Italian. It was a cake in the house every
Oh,
week. And
Wait,
so
what's a socket to me cake? I don't think I've ever had that.
I don't even know how to describe the socket to me. I'll have to see that offline. I
Yes.
can see it. It's been 15, 20 years since I've had the socket to me. Matter of fact, Magic Johnson, when he owned several Starbucks, he brought in pound cake and socket to me cake.
I am
And
definitely looking that up.
so it is. Look, I'm sure they have it where you are. Just find the place, sock it to me.
To me, I'll look
Absolutely
it up.
amazing.
I
Absolutely
love to
amazing.
bake, so that's exciting. I love that you shared these beautiful recipes. I grew up in the South with a Latina like
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
Mm-hmm.
two versions as well. My Southern and my Hispanic
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Colombian
Mm-hmm.
soul food, which I have to have no matter what. So
Mm-hmm.
I just thank you for sharing. I really always have a fun question that we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's important to know what's that thing
Yeah.
that makes you,
Mm-hmm.
remember. And too bad y'all didn't get
Mm-hmm.
your grandmother's recipe. Oh my
So
God.
I'm sure someone has it.
Yeah.
I just don't have it.
Yeah.
I've got to ask. And because
Ask.
that, yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds like fried pies, which we in Colombia call empanadas.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with meat, but my we also had the version my
Mm-hmm.
southern
Mm-hmm.
my
Yeah.
mother-in-law, she did the fried pies. So
Mm-hmm.
oh, beautiful.
There was a place when I was with Citigroup and I was in Texas, and there was a place I went to. They sold the best empanadas,
Oh,
the
where
best.
is it? Are they still there?
I don't. I'd have to check. It's in
Yeah.
Odessa, Texas,
Okay.
and it was a mother and a daughter, and that's all they sold. They sold it out of the supermercado every day at the grocery store, and but they had a booth and it was set up. The
Oh,
absolute best.
that is that, there's so many versions. Like now I try every time I go, like Nicaragua does one,
Mm-hmm.
Honduras does
Mm-hmm.
their own, Colombia, Panama, everyone has their own version. And it's always nice to see how they do theirs differently. They use
Mm-hmm.
different masas
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
depending on
Yeah.
where you're from. So again, I really have enjoyed this discussion with you, Mel. Thank you so much for sharing everything,
Absolutely.
insights, your experiences, everything, your story,
Mm-hmm.
and also your vision for where we're going. I think that is
Yeah.
such an
Yeah.
inspiration, and I'm really excited about the future with our organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun. I'm excited about this role. I'm excited about Berkshire Hathaway Energy. I'm excited about, diversity forward and what does it look like. And more important, I'm excited for all the people that we're bringing together so that we can do some great things. And Teresa, our partnership, I don't need to say it. We're connected. I'm here to help and support you. I know that you're here to do the same, and so I look forward to even more of these discussions over the years and how we can continue to show up and be the difference.
Thank you so much, Lemo. That means so much to me, and I know to our organization as well. And thank all of you for tuning in
Wow.
today for Diversity Matters. You realize this has been such a lot of nuggets that we took away
Mm,
from Lemo. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest and to learn about the impactful work that you're doing at BHE. And as we close today, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for being part of
absolutely.
this vital dialogue because we have so many people that join us and the engagement that we get, the responses, the text messages,
Hmm.
that's really what fuels the support and mission
Hmm.
and helps us bring these important conversations to the forefront. So remember to stay connected with us for more episodes and exclusive content at our website, diversitymattersseries.com. You can go down there and see all the different episodes that we've held, starting with the very first. Gino Blafario, CEO, was
Wow.
actually our first guest at Diversity Matters. And also you can find this on YouTube as well at diversitymattersyoutube.com. So join us again on July 24th for another engaging segment of Diversity Matters. And remember, every story counts. And here at Diversity, it matters and
Wow.
your story matters. Thanks again, Lemuel. Until next time. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Lemuel.